poem by Ponce Lawrence Dunbar called We Wear the Mask. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile with torn and bleeding hearts we smile, all while we wear the mask. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hello, Tamika.
Hello.
Sister Catchings.
Brother Saunders.
We are here on a Friday night and we are having our 12th episode of Community Conversations. And tonight we are going to have a discussion around mental health and why it matters. And it's not a matter of why it matters because we've all been in a collective pandemic, collective issues. We're looking around and everywhere you look, I don't want to say it's too far fetched, but it feels like people are stressing out, losing their minds, trying to find balance on top of the pre-existing mental conditions that people were in prior to COVID. I feel like this is just hiding everything. But Tamika, where you see us going with this tonight?
I'm ready to have some fun. We got a nice little group of, not little, I shouldn't say that. We have a nice group of panelists. And, I love just the fact every week, or every month, we get the opportunity to talk and, really just, in a sense, be vulnerable for a little bit.
Right.
And I think that tonight, that's where we're going to go. That's what we're going to see. Mental health affects all of us, whether directly or indirectly. So this is a conversation that definitely needs to be had.
Definitely, definitely, and I think this is definitely where it has to start. I'm going to be honest with you. My mental, again, as a host, and I think that's this one thing. We see everybody on TV, and everybody has to come to that point where we're just looking at mirror and have to, come to that realization that mental health does not necessarily mean that there's something wrong. Let's make sure we're not. Mental health is also actually about how are you actually improving it on a day-to-day basis. How are you taking care of yourself? How are you planning on the offense, on the defense, so on and so forth. And I think we're going to touch into a bunch of levels tonight. So if you are watching this live on Facebook at Tease Me, go ahead and share. I wanted to give a shout out. I sent out a post today, Tamika, yesterday, and I said, where are all the mental health professionals at? And one of my friends was like, I work in mental health. And I think everybody was just kind of like, Eric, you asked me help, you can come to me. I did not know that's what you did. And, so that's one thing.
I'm
like,
so sorry.
I don't know if you know this, but I've been in a house for almost a year today.
Yeah, a year today, Eric, a year today, seriously. Last year on the 12th, I remember our company had a company-wide meeting and our president brought us all together and said, hey, you know what, COVID happened, right? It came, we literally thought we were going to be like away from work for a month or so, a couple weeks, not for a year. And yeah, that mental health aspect of it, I know, like you said, you're feeling it, I'm feeling it too. So yeah.
So definitely feeling it. And so again, if you were watching this, share those people, everybody who replied back to that post. I'm gonna address everybody. Eric D. Saunders on Facebook. Check it out. I really just wanted to see who's doing what, because there's again a lot of mental health professionals out there. We're all doing the work, but the problem is, man, we get burned out too. Uh, and I've heard it. A good therapist has a therapist. And so again, I think it's time for us to pull the veil back a little bit. We want to start off, Mr. Rhodes. We have our visual artist, King Nate. How you doing, sir? And I know you guys can see it on our panel. I know you can see it in Facebook, but Rhodes getting busy with this painting already. I don't know where he's going to go from here. Sell it to me as is. But tell us a little bit about what your work is tonight, and how does this speak to mental health awareness?
So this particular painting is titled Colored King. And so you can get a closer look here. this particular individual is going through, kind of like a mental health crisis. And the entirety of the painting will be a lot of natural aspects of flowers and butterflies and different insects, things you would find in nature. Because me, myself, sometimes when I'm upset and I'm dealing with my mental health, I just need fresh air. I need to get out of the house, get away from everyone else, take a walk. And it's those things that we find out, in nature that we kind of have to be grateful for, because it's always there. That's always there to go and, just get a deep breath and listen to the birds chirp. So that's kind of like what this painting embodies.
I just want to.
Right. I said, so this is ongoing. And so you're going to be adding to it tonight. And by the end of this, we're going to have a whole canvas full of butterflies and ants, right?
I hope so.
Okay. Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. The ants maybe give me a little anxiety right now, but since we're on the topic of it, but man, that looks beautiful, man, and I think it really breaks down barriers where you're going with that, much needed barriers. All right.
Thanks, Nathaniel.
So thank you
Thank
for
you
being
so
here.
much.
So we're going to get into our panel. All right. So we want to give out a shout out to our newest member of the team, Miss Veronica, who is probably watching right now, and put together our panel for tonight. But we want to have everybody go around, introduce yourself, promote yourself, love yourself, and just let us know a little bit about who you are and your connection to the discussion for tonight.
Starting with the best Amy ever, shall we?
Hi, I'm Amy Etchison. I am a school-based mental health therapist for children. I work in Anderson schools through my company, Centerstone, and I just work with some of the highest needs kids in the school to address mental health issues by providing therapy, life skills, case management, and support for the families.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. Nikki. Or should I say Nicole, aka Nikki?
Hi, everybody. I'm Nicole, but as you know, Tamika calls me. I can also go by Nikki. I'm a senior. I go to Bipolar University, and I'm a member of the track and field team there. I do the Heptathlon. And what brings me to this conversation today is I kind of just want to touch on the importance of physical health and nutrition and how that also plays a role in your mental health, just from the resources that I've been given during my time at Butler, as well as the experiences I and my teammates have had as well. So excited to be here.
Nikki, before you go, what is heptathlon, you said?
Yeah, so it's 7 events. So I do hurdles, high jump, long jump, shot put, the 200, the 800, and javelin. So pretty busy. But
Yeah. Yeah, no free time. Diamond.
Hi, everyone. My name's Diamond. I am a member of the Chi-City-wide chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I am a senior at IUPUI studying nursing. So I've been able to get a lot of experience with patients who've dealt with mental health. I also work as a patient care technician at Community North Hospital within their behavioral health pavilion. So I've worked with patients from 5 years old all the way up, just coming in for any behavioral issues that are also related to their mental health. So I've worked with depression, suicide ideation, bipolar depression. So I'm just here to just bring awareness and also just provide, I guess, my experiences and just bring that knowledge.
And Diamond, you're a senior, you said it at IUPUI? Yeah, we're going to come back to that because even being a nurse, I want to know how you got into that field and why. Like, not that you're young, like super young like that, but I think that just the path that you've been on. Paris.
Hi, I'm Paris Burt, and I am the co-founder of That's Love, which is an organization that focuses on sharing God's love through relationships, community, and families. And I bring to this conversation someone who has experienced depression, postpartum, all of that, anxiety, and especially like from the religious aspect where they think it's like taboo to even go to like counselors or things like that. So yeah, that's where I come in on this.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for being here. And last but not least, is it Kamish? Did I?
It's Kamish.
Kamish, I got it. I was like, oh.
First, thank you so much, Tamika and Eric, for having me on. I'm excited to be here. I am a mother of 3 very ambitious and very busy children. So if you see them running in and out, we are home. So I'm also a wife to a wonderful, supportive husband. My trade is that of a trauma specialist. I'm a certified trauma specialist and I work with trauma survivors. And my specialty majority of the time is integrating theological principles with psychological practices. And so in that I get an opportunity to implement programming in different local churches with our mental health ministry. And what I bring tonight is just a general awareness of the need to break down the stigma surrounding mental health, especially in minority communities. So I'm just excited to be here.
Thank you. And thank you guys for being here. We got a nice little conversation put together tonight, but I'll kick it off. I know Eric is kind of like, okay, what's going on? But I'll kick it off. I mean, I think, Kamish, what you just said about the stigma around mental health. When you guys think about just hearing the word mental health and what people think, and of course, there's a lot of negative and, positive connotation that goes around it. But when you think about mental health, how does that fit into you, and how, like, looking at the stigma and looking at the word, how did that play in your own personal mind? Anybody?
I think for me, growing up in the church, it was like, oh, am I crazy? Because it was looked at like you have a demon or anything like that, but now understanding it, it's just like, people do go through this, and it's just how you, like Eric said at the beginning, it's how you operated with it and how you get better and things like that. So that's how I look at it now. It's just bettering myself and understanding, okay, this is a part, like my mind is a part of me. So let me, help myself.
I feel like for me, I never really heard the term mental health growing up. I feel like that was something that I didn't really even hear about or learn about or experience or understand until I got to college and kind of chose my career in the mental health field. So that's something that's been interesting for me to kind of unravel and still learn about every day through working in the mental health field. I think it's something new every day. You learn something all the time, and there's even more to learn, to come. So it's been interesting to kind of go on a journey where it almost didn't even seem like a thing when I was younger, and now it's a huge part of my life and obviously everybody's.
For me, I don't hold any stigma now with the things that I know, but I know growing up in my community, largely African-American community, to think about the ideal of mental health or even talking with someone about mental health issues it was a taboo. You didn't take things out of the family. There's a lot of different labels that were tossed around. Even me pursuing my degree in the mental health field came with its own level of stigma with regards to the Christian community that I was involved in at that time. So it's really heavy, and it's unfortunate because it carries a lot of backlash for communities that definitely need it. So I just think that giving a voice to it and letting people understand that we can still, reach out and move beyond those barriers. I think this conversation is really vital in helping to do that.
I would say for me, I definitely agree with Amy and Paris as far as I don't know, it just I didn't really know what mental health was growing up, and um, I feel like my grandparents and my parents, it just kind of seemed like they were like against like going to a therapist, or they were just like, that's people in the Black community, like they don't do that. So like the first time me hearing about mental health was definitely in college. So it was very new to me, and people saying like, oh, like you need to make sure like you take time to care for your mental health because that's really important. Um, and I feel like back then I had a negative stigma on it when I first heard about it because I tied it with like, oh, like you must have like an issue or you must have a problem. But I feel like now I'm very like stressed out with school. So like in my head, I'm like, okay, I need to take an hour or 30 minutes to just focus on my mental health and just watch a TV show or just like take a bubble bath or something like that. So nowadays it's more so more positive than negative.
Yeah, and just to touch on that, I feel like I kind of agree. Just like when I was growing up, and even just up until recently, honestly, I just think like there is a perspective around mental health that ties to like weakness. So I would feel like, okay, like, like it's just a bad day, like brush it off. Like I wouldn't sit there and think like if there was like an overlying like concept or idea that was making me think away, it was just very much so situational. So like it was a bad day, I'll brush it off. So I think that was just the thing that I thought of, like growing up, especially. Like I never really thought to be like, okay, like maybe there is a reason that like all these things are happening, like finding a connection that could really help me, like just not for one situation, but just for an overall like concept of things. So I think that that was something that was really big for me, at least to recognize, to like have strong mental health is just like things aren't situational. Like a lot of things that happen to you, like are happening to you for a reason. You can see it in a lot of other different things if you step back and just think about it. And like I think it's more so weak-minded if you don't take the time to like pay attention to your mental, because your mental is weak in that state. So just trying to like shift that stigma from like in like pursuing like strong mental health and like not having like an outer like tough shell and keeping everything in as being strong, just like shifting that to being like, okay, getting help is actually the strong thing to do and things of that nature.
Personally, me as an artist, artist kind of like the way I deal with my mental health. It's like um, an examination of my thoughts. Like I'm able to express them in this way, and I think that people should really understand the importance of mental health. For one, 90% of the things that we do require a thought. You have to think about what you're doing before you do it. And if your thoughts are all scrambled, whether it's because you're having a bad day at work, you just had an argument with a friend or a loved one, you're frustrated about something that you didn't get to do today, that you didn't accomplish, or if it's a financial thing, whatever it is that's burdening your thoughts, it's going to affect your actions. And sometimes you have to sit down and find some kind of way to, or some kind of outlet. And so I'm blessed to have art as my outlet. Anyone, can use art. And I think someone spoke about earlier, working out, exercising, cooking, reading a book, just an escape from your mental is the best way to deal with this. So that's kind of like my take on it.
And already, again, I love how nobody said the same thing. And I knew this was going to happen because, like I said, there's nowhere that you can look to where something's always, constantly making an impact on your mind. And so we've actually got some questions that have come in, and we want people that are watching, to very much feel a part of this conversation, is a community conversation. And I wanted to hit on one, and then we're going to circle back. But I think this was the first one that came in. How can you tell if someone is bipolar or simply suffers from depression? Anybody can kind of speak to that? This is coming in from Miss Patty. Miss Patty Ann. And again, I appreciate her asking that question just so we can all grow in our competencies. But Amy, I know you work in the school system. So have you had any scenarios around that or any
Um, work-
training around that?
Working with children, I think Kamish could probably speak a little bit more
Yeah,
to a
Kamish.
specific bipolar diagnosis. Working with kids, there's not a specific criteria in children and the younger ages. But I think, with just a general depression, it can be hard to recognize that kind of depressed mood in anybody. But with children, a lot of times a confusion that I was thinking about in preparing for tonight, it can come out a lot in irritability. So I work with a lot of kids who are very angry rather than that depressed mood. You think when you hear depression, you think of sadness, things like that. But sometimes it is good to note that it can come out in kind of a more anger, irritable kind of state or mood like that. But I think Kamish can probably speak a little bit more to the bipolar side, kind of those different swings and the manic and the different moods there.
Kamish?
Sure. So bipolar, a lot of times I like to tell people, does not just consist of mood variations. It's bipolar. So there's two opposite polars of mood expression. But typically in bipolar, you will see someone be either really high up or very low down. So mania can look anything like grandiose ideations, like thinking that you can climb a mountain in a day or something like that, to very low, to being completely like debilitated, almost suicidal to a certain degree. But sometimes we get bipolar confused with different personality deficits that mimic bipolar. Because bipolar is, so to speak, rare, oftentimes we find it is more of a personality issue, more so than it is bipolar. And so what Amy was speaking to is bipolar 2, where the mania is more anger and aggression related, versus having the really high and feeling like you can go on 7-day binges with no sleep and things like that. So hopefully that clarifies it.
And like I said again, we the chat room is on Facebook is popping, and we really getting some good questions in. But Diamond, I think you something that you have said regarding just the context of it all, and just the taboos of not saying anything, and I mean this is deeply rooted into our system. This is deeply rooted into our civilization, and I'm Ms. Kamisha, I'm glad you had spoke to it, because I think we friends, and I'm guilty as well. When you come to learn of something the first time, you really don't know how to place, you don't do your research. And I heard so many times like, oh, that person bipolar, or that's the bipolar, and now this becomes a little coin word, try to be cool and try to sound like more, and it's almost like
Commercialized.
Right, commercialized, and to the where it becomes right, ignorance is the cool thing to do. and it's like, but you don't know what you don't know. And so
let me chime in real quick. I know Diamond, I think you hit on it. Nikki, I think you hit on it, as far as when you really started learning about mental health and what it was. And I will say for me, I probably didn't understand to the full extent until I was a professional athlete. I tore my ACL my senior year in college. So like senior year is over. I get drafted to Indiana. Thankful beyond words for that. But then I came here. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know the situation. I knew nothing really about Indiana other than the Hoosier State. They love basketball. So like throw all those things. And I just remember going into, and I guess now looking back, not necessarily a depression, but like the irritability that I think Amy, you talked about, like that child, like that irritability of like, I know nothing, I'm here in a new surrounding, rehabbing with people I don't know. on a team with people I don't know and I know I'm not playing. And I remember our general manager like sitting me down and saying, you need to like talk to a sports psychologist. And I looked at her like, I don't need to talk to nobody. I don't need to talk to anybody. And that was like my first reaction. And she was like, she tried to explain what it would be good for. And I was like, even at that point, I don't want to talk to somebody outside of my family and the people that I thought that could help me. But the reality is, and now, like, I'm the first one. I had a third, so I ended up going. I had a sports psychologist pretty much my whole career. But what I had to learn from that, and even now, I am quick for family members. I am quick for family and friends to just say, like, hey, it is okay to find a mental health therapist. It is okay to talk to somebody outside your family. And I think not that my family shielded me from it. I think it was just a matter of, and I know there was one question that came up in the chat, like as far as the church aspect of it. I don't even think it was the church aspect. I just think that it was always just something like, as African American, just deal with it. Like, be strong, be tough. Don't worry about it. Like, life, you'll be fine. And I find I'm guilty of that. You'll be fine. Just figure it out. You'll be fine. Keep moving on. And so, like, I am interested. Somebody, I think in the chat, just talked about, the African American. Is this something that is learned, and not just African American? Is this something that is brought up in the church? Is this something that's brought through the family? So, each one of you guys just talked about your journeys a little bit, but from the mental health aspect, not knowing about it, especially like Nikki Diamond, not knowing about it early, what was it, or what kind of help teach you, I guess, in a sense of like what mental health is? And I think this is the question for everybody. Like, how did you learn about the mental health, and what experiences maybe have you guys been through that have made you now like okay to be in a conversation and talking about it?
Yeah, I can go first. I feel like coming to college, like I think a lot just like has shifted even recently, over the past couple of years, with just like bringing mental health to light. And so I think I was introduced to a lot of resources and things of that nature regarding mental health. But I'll always say, like, I honestly think the best teacher is experience. As much as people try to prep you for it and things like that, like it doesn't really resonate with you until it actually happens. So I think it wasn't until, like, similar to what you said, Tamika, where I was in a situation where I was like, not like I could very much so fake like I was like going through the motions and being fine. But it wasn't until like I actually like realized that, like, okay, I probably need to see someone else, that it really resonated with me, the power of it. And like just seeing like how I've been able to shift like things that I thought would never connect to my mental health, like just from getting that together, has something that's really helped me just like be more like, I guess, keen to like what it really does to you. Because I feel like along with what you said, like I'm very much so like there's nothing wrong with me, or like what is someone else going to tell me about me that I don't know about myself? Like I've lived in my body for 20 years and this person's known me for a day, so like, or like a week. So it's like I think that's another stigma, just like being very like stubborn and headstrong, and the fact that like I know me, I can handle me, like I can get me together that better than someone else can. So just like being vulnerable to be like, okay, let me listen to what this trained person can tell me about myself, and then just going from there.
I definitely agree with Nikki. I feel like in high school there were people who committed suicide, but I was just like, oh, why did they do that? Like I don't understand, you know? And once again, I didn't know like what mental health was. So then once I came to college, I feel like I wasn't really introduced to it until my resident assistant, she had programs surrounding mental health. And I'm like, let me just, go to this. I don't know what this is. So she really like broke down what it was, and just how important it is, especially being a college student. I was just like, oh, okay. I feel like for me, like Nikki said, it comes with experience. I feel like I would be stressed out and I would be tired, but I'll just be like, okay, like you just have to get through it. Like just keep going, just get through it. A better day is coming. And then I just feel like I got to a point in college where I just started telling people like, I'm tired, I'm stressed out. Like mentally, I just feel like I need a break. I need a break from school. I need a vacation. I need something. So I realized like, oh my gosh, like my mental health is like really important. Like this is something that's really important once I felt the urge to like want to talk to someone and tell someone how like I was truly feeling.
And I appreciate you for being vulnerable about that and transparent. Just saying that because I think we've been there too. And that's empowering me to want to even just kind of express that and go down memory lane because you're currently in undergrad, correct? Oh my God. See, I went down to Bloomington, down to IU, and man, I sure wish we would won those Big Ten games yesterday, but that's beside the point. Where you already had to go through racial stigmas to get there, you already was alone, you already felt isolated, you're already shifting cultures. And so, and then, but on top of that, we weren't so phone driven and social media driven as this generation might be. And then that's a balance too. And I think one of our followers actually even kind of made mention to that. Like, how do you even balance with there's so much things grabbing at your attention, being a college student? And Tamika, just so you know, when you tore your ACL, I remember that because I tore my ACL in high school. And so I really did want to reach out to you as a fan, but I didn't really know how to do the whole letters thing and stuff like that because I thought that really sucked for you.
Well,
But
we can
I
still
never
talk
told you
about
that.
it. We can talk about it.
Yeah, because that's real. That's real. And brother like me is like I was just trying to get on the field. And I said, you know what? Football is not my thing. I think I'm just gonna start writing poetry. So but I think one of the again I'm sorry, I muted myself. We also had some questions that we had created, and it was, can people get over mental health without medication? I think that's also something that a lot of people aren't familiar with in terms of when does the medication actually need to be utilized and how.
Probably different. And I know this is not my question, this is probably everybody's question, but it's probably different. Like to what King Nathaniel said, art is his medication, and I feel like there's a lot of people, like when you start talking about tools and you start thinking about suggestions and how to get through mental health. I know for me, like Diamond said this, the bath and just the walks. I love walks and I love just clearing my mind. Most of the time riding in the car, I don't have music on, so I can just hear myself think. But those are moments for me from the mental health aspect. But yeah, this is not a question for me. This is a question for you guys. Sorry, I jumped in.
So I think very much that it depends on what you're suffering from. Some things with regards to mental health diagnoses can be managed without medication, but there's other things like severe bipolar that definitely need to have medication management. And the goal becomes about how can I manage these symptoms instead of cure them more so than anything with related to the severity of that illness. So some things like depression can be based on behavioral mechanisms taught on how to overcome the depressive symptoms, but other things are so severe that they absolutely kind of need medication in order to become stable. Even some levels of depression need medication, but can be stabilized over time. What I like to tell people, because when I first got in this field, I was totally against medications. I thought if you had a good sleep routine, if you had a good nutritional plan, if you exercise regularly, like we should be able to manage these symptoms. But the reality is that, there's just a different layer of symptom that comes with someone who has unmanaged schizophrenia or unmanaged bipolar. So we just have to, base it on what the symptoms are and what the severity of those symptoms are. But I do think a lot of times medications are only needed when the severity is at that level, because the background of psychopharmacology, the reason that medications came into existence for mental health was to stabilize you, but then to get you stabilized enough so that you could overcome with behavioral management techniques. It was never meant for you to stay on medications long term and not work on actually becoming better in any one area. So sorry, that was a long way of saying they're not always needed.
Right. Okay. But it's again, it's information that I can't tell you the first time I've been in a community conversation just talking about, medical health. This is important, so don't apologize for anything. I got a good friend of mine, Yuri Smith, who asked a good question around what we're doing in the schools. And Yuri, I'm over at Vanguard. We got us a therapist on site that, when we see signs, that we're able to, make that quick. But we also know that students might have therapists and that they might see, and so we, make sure we're here to what they have going on. And we also encourage. I'm PE and health teacher as well, so I'm always encouraging exercising and woo sign and but I got to be careful not to be a little bit aggressive about it, because it's the trauma of it all. It's the trauma of it all, guys. It's like at some point in time, we have to find a proactive way to alter our lifestyles regarding these problems. Whether it's eating, whether it's how what we're creating bad habits out of, to where we're not back at funerals. So uncle or grandpa who died of Alzheimer's, and then we go to the repast, and then we eat all the food that's not good for us at the repast. You know what I'm saying? Foods that contribute to bad mental health, and then the cycle just keeps on going. And then we want to have the kids come to school and learn rigor, but we also know that they're eating hot Takis and ramen noodles and stuff. But that goes into what the mindset cause rate.
We gotta have the Takis. We gotta have the Takis.
We don't have to have no Takis. Now you stop that. You know what? Don't do that. Don't do that. But I'm just but it's Tupac said it. Okay, yeah, I'm quoting Tupac. We got to change the way we think. We got to change the way we eat. But I brought up the school because, again, Amy, I know that you're working in the schools. What are some of the things you guys are doing to just kind of help parents, students, and teachers regarding mental health?
Yeah, so I know specifically with the way our program is set up, we are in the schools every day, and we are able to meet the needs of the students where they are. It's really difficult in the community that I work in, and so many communities that we probably all live in, for parents to make appointments and, get to where they need to be after certain hours, or, within business hours. They're working, they're trying to make a living. And so I think something that a lot of schools, this Anderson schools and surrounding ones are trying to do is trying to bring in those mental health professionals and work together, rather than it just being a separate thing. Children especially spend so much time at school, it's like a second home for them. So and obviously the educators that work here, and then they go home to the parents. So I think what's important is that it seems like communities are really starting to get this idea of community and working together. It's not just they're at home and then they're at school and then they're at home. We're trying to kind of do it all together and meet those kids and families and educators where they're at.
The interesting thing that you say that, do you feel that because a lot of people are maybe stuck in their ways, that again, you get a sense that you want to be a part of the community, but it's like the old me is still pushing back? Do you get that?
Yes. And, I definitely, when I was invited to join this discussion, I was really excited to speak on the overall stigma and the challenges that we still face. And there's still so much room to grow for everybody. But I think it is the first step, getting us and getting the mental health professionals in the door, and then showing those families, hey, we're working with you, we're not working against you, because we do still face that, the kind of idea of, we don't want them in our business, we're trying to take care of this ourselves, and what are they really trying to do, and are they just trying to get us in trouble, those different kind of things. So I think if we can show that we're working with the schools, we're trying to really be a community, hopefully it'll loosen a little bit of the pushback that we are still seeing, but I'm hopeful. I think it's been successful, and I'm hopeful it'll continue to be successful, but there definitely still is that mentality for sure.
I mean, we see it. We definitely see it. I think we even learned that during the whole pandemic, when we was like, hey, man, can we just put our mask on? I don't want to put my mask on, but we all getting sick. It's alienating my rights. Okay, you know what?
We got a lot of comments on Facebook Live, and first off, I just want to say, like, this is the conversation we knew that we needed to have it, but I think you don't know what you don't know. And Amy, I'm gonna come back to you, because I think when you start talking about the challenges, and this is probably a question we can all answer, but I want to hit back to you because you spoke about the challenges. But we've gotten a lot of responses. One of the things from Bonnie, how is the response from parents? So the challenges, but then the response from parents as you're working with the kid, trying to, mental health can sometimes start early, and we don't deal with it early. So it just continues to grow like the snowball effect. But once you start helping the kid, what do the parents come back and say? So where do you feel like those challenges have been?
Yeah, I think the first initial intake and getting that kid signed up, for us to work with them is one of the hardest things. Because like I had mentioned, I feel like a lot of families, they don't know our intentions. They think maybe we're trying to dig up information, or, just to call somebody and, maybe even have their kids taken away, whatever their fears may be, for whatever reasons. I think it's just getting that first step in there is the biggest challenge. Once we start working with the kids, I feel like, I personally haven't experienced, I feel like those walls do break down a little bit, but it takes time. And it's difficult, and they're still kind of there, you're kind of always on the defense. I feel like it takes a while to have somebody not be like, what's she really trying to do? Instead of, just thank you for what you are doing. But I think once we get, kind of in there and really start providing all kinds of support, it's not just talking to the kids. It takes a village. We all hear that all the time. And, so we work with the parents, we provide food, we can go to food banks, we can go to clothing, resources, whatever they may need. So I think it's really showing them that we're here for everybody, the whole family. It's not just trying to talk to the kid and seeing what's going on at home and, all that. It's really, how can we truly support the family? And I think that my coworkers would say that we've experienced, a decent amount of trust. But I think getting in there at first it's tough. It's difficult. It's definitely been a challenge to kind of overcome I feel like well, somebody mentioned it, like, we'll just handle it. We're fine. You're fine, and kind of just keeping it within the family. But I think once we get in there, it's been successful.
And I think you said it right in regards to trust. And again, when we talk, I've heard it in the chat. We hear you, definitely hear you, where we've had some comments bring in religion. We've, the education system. There's been different hurts as it been connected to the education system. There's been hurts as it pertains to religion because, people have treated others with, based off their biases. And again, this is the systemic nature of our country and so on and so forth. Ms. Bird, I saw you agreeing a lot with what Amy was saying. And I wanted to know what are some of your barriers and what you're trying to accomplish, and what are the demographics that you're reaching out to in regards to mental health?
My main demographic is women, and especially new mothers, because listen, postpartum is I feel like that's such a taboo subject. And it's just like, you're a mother, so you're supposed to, be happy and rejoice in this time. And a lot of times it's not the case. But I think that just getting them to understand, like, this is not normal. I think that's the hurdle. And like, any little thing will help. Like a meal will help. Just coming over, having conversation will help. Any little thing will help. I think it's just breaking down that door at first, because they're just like, I don't know. Like, they have so many excuses as to, I just had a baby, or, I just, want to be alone. And it's just the new mother in me that is keeping me like this. But once we're able to break that down, like, okay, this is not normal, and something as simple as giving a meal, that opens up so many doors to where I can be like, okay, listen, I know what you're going through. And for me, I always advise people, like, look, seek counseling. That was one thing that helped me tremendously. And even though I was born in the church, raised in church, everything like that, you pray about it, but I believe that counseling helps tremendously, and it can definitely set you up in the right path if you do need to do medication and things like that. But I believe, like, seeking counseling is extremely important.
So you said seek counseling, and again, I want to give it. Dominic asks, what are suggestions do we have for supporting friends or family suffering from mental health issues? But what if they refuse? Does that kind of feel like an interesting pickle? What do you do when somebody actually refuses, to help? I mean, it's like one of them things, like, maybe I should, try to put you in your place and deflect. Ms. Bird, if you want to touch on that, and whoever else want to touch on that, what do you do if you think, hey, and how do you actually have that conversation? But y'all go ahead and y'all talk about it.
Ooh, that's kind of tough, because I was on the receiving end of it as far as the one dealing with depression, but now I'm kind of like dipping into, handling other people with it. But I would say, tell them more.
Help. You were the one that refused help. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I most certainly refused help, because I thought I could, like Nicole said, I just was like, I'm strong. I'm gonna pray about it. I'm good. Like, I'll be fine. But I think what got me is I couldn't hold my child. I couldn't look at him. I didn't want my oldest daughter to touch me. Like, it was bad. And so I think when I was talking to my husband, because it got so bottled up to where it finally exploded. And I think that was the great doorway for my husband to be like, no, like, you need to go seek help. This is not normal. So I think, I don't know, from my experience, just find that in, like, study that person, listen to them, because they're going to say, like, little things, and they're going to tell, what's going on. You just have to be very attentive, and not be so aggressive, like, look, you need to go to counseling right now and everything like this, but just find that in. And I don't know, yeah.
I can touch on that too, because like I said before, I'm very much so, I'm handling it myself. Like, I don't like, this kind of like stems into like what I was touching to before, with just like things that like have been present my whole life that I would never acknowledge. Like, I don't like talking about my emotions, like all that stuff. It's just like a no for me. Like, I'm like, I internalize it. Like, I'm asleep with it, and the next day I'll be fine. But I like, just to add on to that, like, I did not like people telling me like, go talk to this person and you need to go get help and you can't handle, like, basically people telling me like, what you're doing for you is not enough. Like, you need to find someone else to help you get there, was a big disconnect to me. And I know, like, very similarly, I didn't like when people were like, go see this, like, go see this person. Cause I'm like, who are you to tell, like, again, like, who are you to tell me what I need to be doing for me? So I think it's just really like, if you have someone, I'm just speaking from my personal experience, it's better to kind of like reason with them and not speak to them like so like matter of factly, because what really I didn't like is like, I don't like when I'm not feeling heard. So I'm like, you're telling me like what to do based off of my experience. But like, I'm telling you, I don't want this. I'm telling you, this is why I don't need this. And so kind of trying to find that balance between like, okay, I hear you. Like, I hear what you're saying. Like what you're saying is valid, but like, I urge you to do this. And like, just those little, like, I guess hints like added up over time, and like hearing it from different people, I'm like, okay, this is kind of like a common theme, like things of that nature. So just like making, I don't know, it's like a hard balance, because if you're too pushy, it literally makes people not like want to do the opposite of what you're telling them to do.
You're spot on, because now you've hit into where we're trying to communicate with one another with multiple generational tones and multiple different lenses and repeated rhetoric. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people try to talk to me like your mama doesn't talk to you, or, you know what I'm saying? And that's interesting, because a lot of people take, that trauma, and then that's how you communicate with other people with it. It's like, I'm sorry, but that don't go over here. I need to check you about that. I wanted to come back down. Look,
Hold on, Eric. I think that Nathaniel wanted to say something real quick.
Yeah, I wanted to come to Nathaniel.
Oh.
Actually.
I just kind of agree with what she was saying. I think what it is, it's kind of like a sense of abandonment, or people feel dismissed when you tell them you need to go. It's like, instead of going on a journey with them and trying to help them, it almost feels like you're pushing them away, like something's wrong with them. And I think that's where the defense comes in. Instead of saying, maybe, we can go see someone together, I have problems too, maybe we can go talk to someone. They're like, oh no, you need to go see a therapist. And immediately it's like you're dismissing them out, like there's something wrong with them. And I think that's why people refuse to help. And it goes in with what some of the others were saying earlier, is that it's looked at. I was talking to one of my friends about people that are in poverty or that are homeless. I feel like people treat them like they have some kind of disease. And I feel like mental health is treated that way too, even though there are extreme conditions like bipolar or schizophrenia. Sometimes it's just that someone just had a really bad day, bad week, bad year. And it's a combination of things, and they just feel like they can't get a break. Every which way they turn, someone is trying to push their button, and they just need a breather, or they just need to be reminded of some ways to, get rid of the stress. And they need to be reminded of the good things that they have in their life. Like if they have children or have people that they can go to. But I think that's what it is. And personally, I've been on the end of trying to talk to friends that say they have mental health issues. And it's really frustrating because it's their mental, and I'm not a therapist. So there's really nothing I can do except listen and try to offer some advice. But even then, I do not know what's going on in their head, and everyone handles things differently. So the way I deal with it might not work for them. So I feel like it's frustrating from both sides, because you can't help and they're not receiving the help that they're asking you for.
And so I'm glad you said that, sir, because again, I've been having this conversation all week. We've been getting ready for this conversation. And the term that came to mind, and Kamish, if you coin this and take it, all I ask is for my cut. um, we have CPR, but I feel like now we've moved into the time where we need to figure out how to have an emotional CPR, a mental CPR. Yeah, I can recognize cuts and this, that, and other, but I'm in the school system and I'm always trying to, if I see a student that's off or showing this kind of behavior, is like, okay, how can I become more competent? How can I be more competent in recognizing signs? How can, and that's just from a person to person to person to person, that's a priority now. Because again, we're in a time where, again, the competency is more than just being competent about race, but being competent about sexism, being competent about mental issues, being competent about disability, constantly being competent, into where I feel like we are shedding our old mind and developing a new mind. But we have to do that collectively. Tamika, this is an interesting question we got in our chat box, but what you got on your mind before we go there?
I'm just listening. I think that just all the comments and from the people that are writing in the Facebook chat and to our chat and the questions that we have, it's just interesting when you start just thinking about mental health and all the different directions that it can take you in. And you talked about like just getting ready for this conversation all week. And for me, it's just been one of those things where it's like, we had this conversation before we got on the chat. It's been a month or been a year since we basically got sent home from work thinking we were going to be home for a couple of weeks and come back to work. And COVID has literally like changed the way that our life has been, our world has been. I got masked in pretty much every single jacket that I wear just in case, so that I never forget my mask. And, one of the questions that came up earlier from Yuri was like, how do you, from the mental health capacity, and I'm guilty of it, I'm in my office / bedroom / whatever else I need it to be. I could live in here if I need to, but how do you make a separation from work to life? Like my wonderful husband, thank God for him, but sometimes there are days that I don't really see him, even though we live in the same house, because you're working. And I think that's another issue that ties into the mental health aspect. So advice from you guys, how do you make your separation from those of us that have the home office and just having to work at home? And how do you make that separation from work to life? Everybody talked about work-life balance. I'm still trying to figure out how that works, even when we were going to the office. But how does that factor into your mental health?
I think it really depends on how you define balance and what balance looks like for you in particular. I know Corona has definitely made it harder. They're even coming up with like Zoom exhaustion fatigue or something like that they're creating. And I think when you get the definition of what balance looks like for you, so for balance for me, I think of a motorcycle rider where, when he's riding straight, he's equally, he's distributing his weight appropriately. But when he goes into a curve, in order to stay balanced, he actually has to lean. And so to me, balance means knowing how to go into the curve and distributing your weight appropriately. And so in lay terms, that means being willing to set boundaries with myself, being willing to see what is my capacity and when do I get to my threshold to where I need to disconnect. When have I been on my phone too much? And I love the new iPhone feature that tells you how many hours you spend on your phone and things like that, because it can be a wake up call for you to like look at that and say, wow, yeah, I've spent way too much time. So it comes down to setting it comes down to setting appropriate boundaries for yourself. Here's when I'm going to do this, and here's for how long. And then for my own self-preservation, I need to be willing to disconnect. Otherwise, we slip into overload, and we can create traumatic reactions through burnout and compassion fatigue, because we've then pushed ourselves to the brink where it feels like we're overwhelmed, and we can create certain levels of trauma with that. So yeah.
Did you just say compassion fatigue?
Yes, compassion fatigue, secondary trauma. Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So I was my grandfather's caregiver, early Alzheimer's, dementia. And when I went to the doctor office with him, the doctor would ask me, how are you doing? And I would get frustrated, like, I'm not here for me, I'm here for him, and I would have this tone. And it took me realizing, like, Eric, you're watching a person fade away over a course of time. This same person who essentially helped create the Eric Saunders that you see today, and they're fading away right before your very eyes. So, and then on top of that, again, working in the community, and sometimes I think the people that we serve often don't realize that we're not just separated from the issues just because we don't have your issues, but at any given time we can get that phone call that we don't want to have, and so The question that I was referring to is one of our Facebook guests. Why should parents trust the school system when we know Blacks and people of color are disproportionately misdiagnosed, pushed into special education, and medicated so young? Who would like to tackle that first? Go ahead, Amy. Go ahead, Amy. All right.
First of all, shout out to that Facebook viewer, because I hear you and we hear you. And in preparing for tonight, I looked at a lot of those numbers. I looked at the research and the misdiagnoses, a lot of, research behind mental health, behind medications. They don't represent minority groups. They don't represent African Americans, Asian populations. And so I hear you on that. And it is frustrating. I can acknowledge that. I can say, I know, we don't all have the same struggles or experiences with that. And I think that's why it's important to have these conversations. Because what I want to bring to the table with that is the ability to say that there are people you can trust. And I think that it's important to hear that. Not everybody has good intentions, and I hate that. But I think it's important for everybody of every minority group, of every racial background, to hear that there are people of other backgrounds that do care, and they are fighting for you. And so I that was a reason why I really wanted to be involved tonight, was to be able to put that out there, that it is hard. Good question. Why would you? Why should you? But I think, if you want that help, if that is something that is important to you, it's good to know that there are people who hear you and who do support you, even in the schools or in the community, wherever it may be that you're looking for that. I think it's important that, we're all open to learning about everybody's backgrounds, so we are able to provide accurate care, and, if medication is an option or not, making those right choices and not just wanting to jump to conclusions and things like that. So I just wanted to touch on that real quick, that it is hard. It's hard to trust people, but there are people who do want to truly help, and help the right way, not just throw you into whatever. Yeah.
Can I add to that? I think a lot of times what Amy is saying is absolutely true, but we as parents too, me having, 3 young children, have to be willing to kind of do our own work or our own research, because, the therapist sees what's presented to them. And so if that therapist doesn't have the adequate training, if that therapist just doesn't know certain cultural responsive evaluative tools to use for the child, we have to be willing to say, wait a minute, you're seeing anger here, but I'm seeing sadness in my child, or you're seeing hyperactivity here, but I'm seeing trauma. So how can we collaborate together so that trust can be built, versus me just blindly, saying, okay, have my child, diagnose them, be willing to do the research and then collaborate with a therapist, because every therapist that I've met, they never profess to being perfect at what they do. So we miss things from time to time. And so it's important, if you're involved in that with the child, we love to hear your feedback. We love to understand what's going on outside of the therapy session, so that we can arrive at a diagnosis and treatment plan, considering those things.
I'm gonna be honest. I low key need a mental break. I know we're hosting the show right now, but my mind is all over the place right now. I don't even know what question I want to ask next, and I'm really just so happy that we have. If Tamika, if we was at Tease Me, the room would be packed right now, and it would be so live and active right now, because these questions are, folks on a Friday night, folks are kicking it with us, and so that's all good. They probably got on a button up and sweatpants just like I do. So I mean, it's just it's our new normal. And Diamond, Nicole, for you guys to be undergrad, one of the things that I'm noticing is this. Um, I feel like I'm old now. Oh my God, I was about to say, you young folk do things a little bit different. But again, you was just kind of born into a little bit more technology, a little less old school. But at the same time, I know that it's still there because I have siblings and cousins your age, so I know what they got. But what can you kind of tell us? What's it look like? What's it feel like seeing other peers in college and what they're dealing with? I'm seeing a lot of more suicides. I'm seeing a lot of more your generation where again 10 years ago I was working with a lot of kids where we saw this rise of ADHD and things like that. What are you seeing in the college scene and atmosphere in terms of mental health and it being needy for attention? I don't, can you kind of give us an idea of what does mental health look like in the college world now?
Yeah, I feel like I can touch on two different things. I see like generally just like at school, like kind of Diamond was mentioning it earlier, people are just overworked, like especially just now shifting to the pandemic, like being on Zoom University, like teachers are assigning, I feel like double work. It's a weird concept. Like we're not with them, but in some way, like now we've been doing double than what we've been doing in the real classroom. So I see a lot of people just like stressed, like very much so burnt out and not having the time to take the time to deal with themselves. And so I think it's like weird. I've seen a lot of it through a lot of people, just like the progression of just like, okay, I'm stressed. And that stress just like piles on. And now stress is coupled with being tired. Stress is coupled with being malnourished. Stress is coupled with being sleep deprived. Like you kind of just see all those things kind of like spiral almost. And so for a lot of people, I think just like in college, like it's a gradual progression to where it's like you really need to take a time to take this step back and get help. But a lot of times there isn't, like, I won't say there's not time, but like there's so many other things on your plate, it kind of just gets pushed to like the bottom of your list. And from a different perspective, just like as an athlete, I see a lot using like sports almost as like a crutch or a way to like mask like what you're going through. And so like I see it a lot with like injuries, kind of like what Tamika said, like things of that nature. When that crutch and that foundation is like taken from you, that's like kind of like, okay, I'm having a bad day, I'm gonna go work out. Oh, I'm having a bad day, I'm gonna go do this. And when that's taken away from you, like such a big piece of you, just how to deal with that and how to stomach with like the fact that so much of our existence is based off of our like physical performance and how we're doing, and like it's very much so just statistical. So just having that component taken away from you and kind of like, okay, I'm hurt now, I need to get back, like rehab, things of that nature. It takes a big toll on people. So I think those are the two biggest areas I see, is just like being burnt out, and just from the sports field, like dealing with the fact that scholarships, like a lot of things ride on you being able to perform with your body.
Yeah, I would say Nikki hit it spot on. It's just been very hard to focus on Zoom because, like, for example, my nursing classes, they're 3 hours long just for one class. So pre-pandemic, what would be in class, we would get a few breaks, is now on Zoom, 3 hours long. It's very hard to focus because one second, like I'm taking notes, then the next second I'm like scrolling on like Facebook and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in class. So it's just hard to really stay focused. And I find nowadays, like I'm teaching myself the information, I'm teaching myself about all these different diseases and different nursing interventions and things that like my professors should be, teaching me, but it's just kind of like they're just reading off the PowerPoint. So I've been having to take a extra time out to focus on my studies. this school year, we haven't had a fall break or a spring break. So it's just been very hard because it's just kind of like, okay, you just need to push through. This semester, they are giving us 2 like wellness days where you're not supposed to have like any classes, but we just had one in February and I still had clinical that day. So it was an 8-hour clinical I still had to go to. So it's just kind of hard because everyone I know, like, we're struggling, like we're on the struggle bus, we're stressed out, we're overwhelmed. And then it sucks even more because just like I'm really missing like that atmosphere of like being like in the student center and just seeing like students like walking around and seeing like different people doing fundraisers and just like all of that. I'm missing like the social aspect of college. So it just really sucks because every time I think about school, I'm thinking about, oh, I have exam coming up or I have like 10 assignments that's due. So it's been a lot for sure.
Yeah, and just really quick to touch on that too, because I know we were talking about balance, and I think that's a huge like element of balance that comes with school that has just been like taken from everyone. And so not only just like me and Diamond have been blessed enough to experience college like without the pandemic tied to it. So like a lot of those aspects we've been able to kind of like maneuver based off the foundation that we've already built. But just like seeing freshmen come in during this time has been something that has been super, super like honestly sad to me because like you're so isolated. And I just feel like there's a lot of things that come with college in your freshman year and finding your people and venturing out and kind of like just like redefining yourself like away from your family that they're having to do in their dorm room. So I just think that's a huge component that Diamond mentioned that I feel like is a great point. Just like the social aspect and all the other things that aren't so stressful about school have been taken away. And now it's like, okay, you're going to go 2 months non-packed, we're jamming all this information at you, and then you're going to go home. And then like, so it's just kind of like, I don't know, it's just very much a different environment.
You guys, excuse me, but I'm over here singing, humming Miss Seeley's song. I mean, it's just like, because I mean, college was already challenging, but then to have this all, and just kind of hearing it from you, you know, like say, I mean, 3 hours. I was like, wow, you know, I remember that. Like to make you turn like it stung a little bit, right?
Well, we through the Indiana Fever, we have a course that we're going through, Athlete to Advocates, and it's 3 hours. It's a 15-hour certification. But I haven't been to school since 2001, and I got my master's in 2005. But even that was like more like online, except for the last semester. So like sitting for 3 hours, and we get 2 breaks, 10-minute break. But even that, I'm like, shoot, I'll be over here taking a nap. And the 10 minutes that I have to get back up. So like even I can't imagine 3-hour class at Diamond. Nikki. Bless you. Now, Emily over here said I'm a freshman mentor and they are struggling so hard right now. Yeah, I can only imagine.
Wow. Yeah. So as we are getting questions in, I wanted to know just, I know we kind of talked about some things. Were there any tools that you guys wanted to add on and that, you know, you weren't able to say that you feel like could work and could be helpful to people? And this kind of be specific to what I don't want to kind of generalize it, because again, I think there's again various components in which we discuss tonight. So is there something that you really kind of want to speak to where you have found some effective methods to kind of help serve as a tool for certain mental health? I'm sorry, this is again, my mind's all over the place.
So I don't know how practical this might feel, but one of the biggest things that I try to send home with people who are suffering during this time, and God be with you both, Nikki and Diamond. But one of the biggest things that I send home is the ability to embrace grace with yourself, to be patient with yourself, because pandemics have been known to cause varying levels of mental health issues, but more prominently trauma reactions, or more notably hypervigilance in people. And so with the expectations that you have now, which sound like they're pre-COVID expectations that they're still holding you to, learn how to embrace grace with yourself, knowing that you're not, going to always feel 100%, that you're not going to always feel like doing the work. And that's okay. I like to tell people it's okay to not be okay at moments in your life, and learning how to embrace that in its totality. But also, looking through self-care approaches. So self-care isn't just about treating yourself to a spa day or watching a relaxing movie or even exercising or overly exerting yourself. Self-care is learning about yourself when you are up under stress, and allowing that to be a tool to guide you to the things that you feel like are weak about you, so that you can focus on that and grow it. That's what self-care really is. It's nourishing the soul with a level and depth of insight of self, in order to sustain you.
Yeah, and I was just when I think about self-care, I think of, mostly because I work with children, it's sometimes it seems kind of silly, some of the things that you can try to do. Suggestion, even just setting reminders on your phone. I know even Apple Watches have that, time to breathe thing on them, but even if you set reminders or put sticky notes around, I think my biggest suggestion is to be open and willing to try stuff, to be almost kind of silly with it and find what works for you. Is it something that's stuck to the mirror that says a positive affirmation? Is it a reminder on your phone that says, hey, stop and breathe, or smell a flower, whatever it may be. And I think, kind of have fun with it. But that's the main word I can think of, is kind of silly. It might kind of seem elementary or very basic, or gosh, like, why would I ever need to do this? Like, who needs to set a reminder on their phone? But it really comes down to making it a priority and finding what works for you. I know myself, I work a very on the go, busy schedule. It's hard to find even those few moments to sit down. And so, figure out the best way to remind yourself to do those things.
Yeah, I think another good tool, just something that I've been introduced to recently, but I feel like it's had such a huge effect on me, is just journaling and being intentional about carving out time in your schedule just for you. So I know, like Tamika said, like she goes in the car and she doesn't have music on and she just kind of sits with her thoughts. Like, I think like something big that like me personally I struggle with is just like, I don't internalize like my thoughts. I don't sit there and I just write them out and just really like sit with them. Cause I'm like, okay, let's just do all these things and let me distract myself from them to make them feel better. But like journaling has been really big, just with like reflecting and seeing like, okay, on those bad days, like what made it bad? On these good days, what made it good? And so like something that was really interesting to me that like they shaped it, they described journaling as data collection, which is like super interesting to me because they're like, you can take it in any way. So like for track, okay, this is how I know what I did bad. This is how I know how I do good, but also you could very much so just relate that to your life. Like I said before, this is collection on how I feel. So I can group things together. I can see common patterns. I can see themes, things of that nature. So I think that's something that I just started that is really cool. You don't need to go see a therapist. It's very much so just a you thing. So you can be super vulnerable because you're just being vulnerable with yourself.
I was going to say, I think something that's really important that a lot of people don't do, that I definitely can admit that I don't do, is just taking the time to be present, like where you are right now. Just take that time to just like look around, or just like notice like your breathing, like notice, just notice like your different senses, and just pay attention to like where you are right now. Because I feel like a lot of people, including myself, you're thinking about, oh, like you have this appointment tomorrow and you have to go to the grocery store and you have this, that, and the third, but you just don't take that time to just sit there and be present right now. So I think that's something that a lot of people should start doing, because it's helped me a lot for sure.
Me personally, one thing I like to do, I guess, in regards to journaling is make some kind of a note to myself with a date. of an event where I was just really out of my mind and just really stressed out, because when the time comes forward that another situation comes up, I can look back at that and be like, you know what, remember you felt this same way then and you got through that. So remember just how you felt like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do. You got through it that time. So apply whatever you did then, or just know that it's going to get better. And just reminding myself that I was in that place before, it's a lot more helpful than it would be to try to just sit there and think about the present moment and what's going on, if that makes sense.
I know for me, I agree with what everybody said, and something else that helps me is, so the iPhone, it had like an update or whatever, to where you can change, your phone and everything like that. And what I do is I try to make like quotes every single month on my phone. I'm not always in my phone, but I always have my phone. And anytime I get a text or something, my wallpaper or whatever is just an uplifting quote or something that, okay, encourage me for that moment. And I also pray, I journal, I do it all because I want to make sure that I am, centered with myself and good on all aspects, on all fronts. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, just really quick to that too. Another like iPhone thing is just like using reminders too, because they like pop up as notifications. So if you can set like reminders on like journal or take a moment to think about yourself or breathe, like anything that you need to do that helps you really get centered, it'll just pop up as a notification on your phone and it won't go away until you like check and click if you do it. So I mean, you can cheat and check and not do it, but you're really only cheating yourself. So that's just a way to hold yourself accountable.
Well, and I'm gonna be, for one, now you got to get some Android users mad. For two, y'all assuming everybody got phones. For three, cats out here got that burner phone out there, and so
I've updated. I got
and
an update phone. I got an iPhone now.
I know we're about 10 minutes out, and again, what's going through my mind. I've been watching this documentary on Netflix called Amend, that Will Smith has been narrating. I encourage everybody to watch that. It goes into not just it goes into all of America, and it's so much more than black and white. It goes into Hispanic history, goes into Chinese history, goes into a lot of immigration history, goes into Constitution, goes into the 14th Amendment. And I bring that up because as we go, I think, we definitely just want to be minded in what this is all rooted in and what's at stake here. Again, we've shown that it was once upon a time that you didn't question. It seemed like you really didn't question leadership. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seemed like it's always been protests, but it seemed like there's been a lot of shifty things that have happened to kind of put the people in their place. And I bring that up because one of the questions that we initially had, and it might be a loaded question, but it was asking, are there any racial or ethnic groups that are more likely to have mental issues? Anybody seen any, again, this kind of research around that? I mean, I can just kind of go off the cuff. I could speak what it means to me as a Black person. And we discussed race pretty heavy last month. So, again, that's why I brought it up at the end, so that because when 8:30 comes, we done. But I definitely wanted to make sure that that's addressed, because here's one of the things that also came across my mind this week, and you guys have heard it. Amy, hey, welcome to this aspect of it. But many of us growing up Black, we've been told you got to work twice as hard just to be, you see these nods, right? Now, what damaged me, but what was damaging and toxic about that, because we've come into certain professions and we've got this, but then when I look at, again, the 14th Amendment and this country and how it has not obeyed its own rules, what does it become of you if you're working twice as hard to be good at something that lacks integrity? On paper, constitutionally written and in leadership. And that's again, that's one of those hard, it's not enough today. Man, I've been studying racism all my life. It's not enough to just keep saying that's racist, that's right. We know that. But now we need to get into the conversations on okay, since it offends people to just talk about, we got to have the conversations around mental health. And what often then happens is the finger does get pointed back at majority white people, right? And it's your fault. But I was talking to my wife, I was like, it's not, there's levels to how everybody is damaged. But many of us have been in that position where you've had to lead the diversity and inclusion committee. You got to explain this, and you got to explain this as it pertains to being of color and this. And I always said, listen, yes, we are people of color, but I've never went to Walgreens or Target and got a box of crayons and there was a white crayon outside the box. That's a color too. And I think the more we say people of color and excluding them, then we're not all actually working together, because racism has been damaging to white people as well. It might not seem like that way, but again, to where you're putting things in policy, things have been put into law and have made it that way. That's not superiority. That's fear. And so we've had historically this, things working off of that have been fear-based. And now here we are, where the whole world is having a mental breakdown. And we're at a place where we're at a new beginning. And again, that's not to be off-putting to any of our white viewers that are watching, anything like that. I'm a very transparent conversationalist when it comes to the matter, and that we all, white, Black, Hispanic, Chinese, have to recognize where it has damaged our full ability to be humane, to be whole, and to be collective. But I think oftentimes when that is brought up, it's all about how the damage has been for everybody else. And that's fine, because that's what we got to deal with. I said, but oftentimes it's hard to solve problems that was created by the source that created it. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's, I'm gonna shut up, but but I wanted to at least, Nathan, go ahead and paint something about it. You know what I'm saying, brother. I see you thinking down there. What's on your mind?
Actually, I have it's not this painting that I'm currently working on. This is more of the peaceful aspect after you get out of that mental storm. But I actually have another painting that's finished right here that kind of gears towards what you were just talking about as a person of color in the community. This painting right here is titled Uncertainty, and it's about that moment where you're so overwhelmed with what do you do next if you're pulled over by a cop, or you get into a conversation with an ignorant coworker that just is ill-informed about whatever they're saying to you. They don't know that they're offending you, or you just get into a situation as a person of color and you're like, it doesn't really feel like I have an easy way out of this. No matter which way I go, I'm going to end up being the victim, or, or the person that has caused the problem. And that's why I did this painting right here. These two situations right here. This man doesn't have a way out, and it's like that every day as a Black man. I'm pretty sure those names that are on that list, when they did lose their lives, that was just another day for them too, and they did not know they were going to lose and you just go on about your day. You try to, but this ties in with mental health too, because there's so many things that I feel like we have to do. And you said it earlier, we have to work twice as hard. There are other people that can be mediocre and get the things that we have to try a million times harder for. And just, that's just the gist of it. It's just like, you always kind of feel this way because there's so much going around and there's so many ways that you can be affected as a person of color. And it just makes you like, makes your head explode. You know what I mean?
My good fraternity brother right here, he said racism is a public mental health crisis.
Pandemic.
And that's the pandemic that's been going on and making decisions, and that's forever. And we're about 3 minutes out, but again, we wanted to get to the root, but we can't be naive. We can't just look at the leaves and not look at the roots. And I told you.
To that just real quick.
Yeah, yes, you may.
I think it's hard because you can't really talk about the Black experience in America without understanding the varying levels of trauma. And it's not just trauma for African Americans, it's trauma for those who suffer from what we call cognitive dissonance, knowing a thing is true, but just choosing to believe on something else. So that can be traumatic for other cultures as well. But we have to understand that trauma, which is wound in medical terms, but is fear in clinical terms, until we're able to deal with the varying levels of trauma and we can meet in the middle on how we have all been affected and deal with the psychological ramifications of that, it's going to be hard for us to move beyond the things that we see in our daily lives, the trauma triggers that continue to happen in our daily lives. Until we change the narrative around the experience of trauma and it being a very real issue, it's going to be hard for us to progress forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, man, might have to be a part 2 for this, but wow. And Nathaniel, you play too much, man. King Nate, you play too much with that painting, brother. We're not gonna sit here on this panel and act like we're gonna ignore what that other painting was about. All right.
I just wanted to, can I just say something real quick? I know we're almost out of time, but I just wanted to add to what Eric was saying and Kamish was saying, and just say that I think it just like when she was talking about the trauma, I think it just really comes down to anybody, no matter what cultural background you are, what race you are, acknowledging that everyone has these struggles and no one's are less than. There's everybody struggles, everybody has trouble. And I think, this is my call to all of the white people watching that, if the quote that was, you have to work twice as hard. We have to work twice as hard to support you in that too, to be those allies and to be those people that are speaking up for you too. The ones that, maybe we don't have to work twice as hard to get certain places. We can help you not have to work twice as hard too. And I just wanted to throw that out there to all of the viewers, that it's everybody's job. It's everybody's responsibility.
Well, this has been a phenomenal night to me. Nathan, they want to Nathaniel, they want to know if you selling. I'm sorry, Nathaniel. I'm sorry, man. But brother, I apologize. But they want to know if you selling that painting. And you can find them at the King Nathaniel. Thank you. Apologize. And yeah, because those are some incredible pieces. And this.
Thank you so much. Yes, that's where I do most of my business. I have a website under construction, so that's where prints and originals will be available. But they can message me at that Instagram next to my screen name there if they're interested in any of the pieces that they see tonight or any others that they see on my Instagram.
Well, Tamika, this has been brought to you by Tease Me Indy. So, if you've not had any tea over at Tease Me, make sure you get over there because she's going to be opening up a new spot. I felt like that needed to be mentioned tonight. Tamika, I'm gonna shut up. You can go ahead and close us out.
Well, it's 8:31. It's officially 8:31, and everybody knows me. But this has been a great conversation, and I definitely want to just thank you guys. Everybody on the chat is like, is there going to be a part 2 next month? So we might be reaching out, just to continue the conversation. But anytime, and I think that's really what the conversation, why we started them, is to be able to be a resource, to be able to talk, have hard conversation, and really just, it's all about education. We're all learning every day. And I like the crosswords, and I've got my little notes over here on, different things, different words, different expressions that were used tonight. And, things that I want to continue to learn as well. So thank you guys for coming. One thing though, that we were talking about, like what's one thing that keeps you, so my boss bought me a balance board. And so when I find myself going crazy, and then she even wrote, like, that's my one word for 2021 is balance. So she even wrote that. But when I find myself going crazy or about to go crazy, I'll like pull the balance board out, and I'll just stand on it in one foot, then I'll do the other foot. So balance in all the different things that we have to talk about. Mental health is definitely one of those things where you got to find the balance. And I like the compassion fatigue, traumatic health, balance. There's so many different things that we talked about today that were just great. And I hope that people will have learned from this conversation. And, definitely just want to say thank you guys for hanging out with us on a Friday night. I know it's better than anything else you could potentially be doing on Friday during the pandemic. So we appreciate you guys. Thank you, Eric. As always, thank you, Veronica. Veronica Watkins.
Have a good
bomb.com. All right. Have a great night.
Enjoy the sunshine and rain.
Both of them.
Both of them. All of it.